say goodbye. In the end, it was the same old swan song. The king is dead, you never know it, but we got pictures of a different man. He's flesh and blood, no one knows all the answers. Some days we just do the best that we can. You changed my mind, it breaks your heart to admit. Don't make me say the king is dead, the shower's over. We came a long way just to turn around. The lesson learned, no one knows all the answers. Some days we just do the best that we can. You change my mind, it breaks your heart to admit. Now one's too late. You let me in behind the lies, but you're no use to be like skies. Oh, now one's too late. Some days we just do the best that we can. You change my mind in a minute. It breaks your heart to admit. Don't make me say the king is dead. The king is
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Empire League podcast. I am your host and commissioner, Scott Sprague. That is your co-host, a heaping pile of self-loathing. Heaping pile of self-loathing. Say hi to the people.
Hi, everybody.
We had a great week. This was a really fun playoffs. It was a hell of a Monday night for everybody. But real quick, we do have some business to attend to before we get into the podcast proper. And to start things off, the king is dead. The league is officially renewed through the 2025 seasons. Congratulations to absolutely everybody except Andrew Cahill.
Yeah, it came down to the wire, but I was terrorized by Obi Geider all the way into an early grave. So, it just means we get to keep playing together with these teams, which I definitely didn't sell out to win this year.
It's almost like you sold out. Looking at trading away Brock Purdy and Rachaad White, you sold out to keep this league going, which is even more impressive.
I'm just altruistic like that.
We appreciate it. And we're going to look into OB Guider, terrorist, possibly. Some would say probably. But there's a little bit of hero in all of us. And Brian, we all owe you a debt of gratitude. It won't extend into the matchups this weekend, but we appreciate your service nonetheless.
Yeah, if those words had any truth behind them, you would bench Justin Jefferson.
I absolutely will not do that. No, I was actually hanging out with Brian just last night, and he made the same argument. Except for him, it was Tyreek Hill, and I won't be doing
It
that.
should have been Christian McCaffrey for both of us.
Look, I had to face the Christian McCaffrey Josh Allen stack last weekend again that my mom had, and I eked by, so it can be done. They can be beat. And then this weekend I get to play against Tyreek Hill and Devontae Swift. So I'm just playing all of my studs. I now have to face down the gauntlet of all of my star players that have been terrorizing you. So I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, you have to play them in different weeks. We have to play them in the same week.
Don't be mad because I schedule better.
Okay. But I think there's more notes. So let's keep going.
So there has been some confusion about when the contritions or how long the contritions are going to last for. This coming week is the last one we're going to do for the season. So whoever has the lowest score here in week 16, they will have to do a contrition video. And then after that, for week 17, there will not be one because there's only going to be one matchup, and it'll be the championship matchup. So one will walk away the winner, and one will walk away like the rest losers.
Yep.
Moving on, we have a game coming up that I want to play with my lovely co-host here about Jalen Hurts. I know you're a fan of the Tush Push. I know it's one of your favorite plays in football. Yeah. I would like to ask you a question. Of all of Jalen Hurts's points so far this season, not counting first down bonuses,
okay,
what percentage of his total points comes from the Tush Push?
65.
No, that would be impressive. 28%. So 28% of his total on the season. That's more than his pass yards, no passing touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns other than the Tush Push. Who knows if they'll be able to do it again next year, if they'll be allowed to, or if they can do it without Jason Kelce if he retires. But goddamn, did they find a way to just absolutely break the NFL?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go on the record and say it shouldn't be banned.
Oh, I agree.
Defenses have stopped it for every other team that's tried it. So the Eagles are just good at it and they have the quarterback to do it. With that being said, Jalen Hurts is fake good and he's just really strong. And as soon as he was put in a position to have to win the game with his arm, he threw an interception to former Giant Julian Love. So, fake good. Fuck the Eagles.
Sure. Yeah, I'm on board with fuck the Eagles. I would be, despite of him being real good or fake good, I would like to see him do it with anywhere near the same success without Jason Kelce in front of him. I think even if they ban the actual pushing of his backside, it comes down to the combination of Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelce. And I think if you take that piece away, I think he's going to look like every other quarterback that tries to do it.
Probably. Jason Kelce is probably one of the top 3 centers to ever play.
Yeah, and he just knows the timing and can just execute it so well. And they do it, it's a unit that they do together. And if he retires, I think that's the Tush Push retiring itself.
I agree. I hope he, honestly, even as a Giants fan, I hope he doesn't retire. The guy is just, he's just so good. And, it's on the one hand, I'd love to see a guy go out on his own terms, right? You don't want to see a
Mhm.
guy like, to the point that he can't play anymore. But it's just like he's still probably a top what 2, 3 center in the NFL, like right now.
I mean, if they keep running that play, it'd be hard to find a center that's any better
Yeah.
than him.
Uh, big fan of
But
Jason Kelsey. Still fuck the Eagles.
couldn't agree more. Go Browns. And he is from Cleveland along with Travis Kelce, so I can't disparage him at all.
That's right.
Moving on, we will dive into the waiver wire. Just a couple of additions here. Looks like some youth being added for next year. You can talk about your pickup here.
Yeah, I dropped on Tavian Wicks and then he exploded for like 14 points, which
As soon as
sucked.
you were eliminated.
Yep. I said earlier when I picked him up originally that he could potentially be someone that I keep and have into next season. Honestly, the only reason that I dropped him over other guys is because I don't know if his opportunities will be as significant next year. And if I had made the second round, maybe Alexander Madison becomes like an emergency play for me because he's like potentially a starter, although I think he's probably going to lose his job, even if he is healthy. Um, with being eliminated, there's no reason to keep Alexander Madison on my roster. He's not good. He hasn't been good since I traded for him. Um, he's actually been even worse than I thought he was going to be, which is impressive. And so, we'll bring Wicks back in and hope that he can kind of beat someone out for the number 3 receiver spot next year.
All I just heard was Scott go pick up Alexander Madison. He's no longer on my team and he's about to pop off for 30 points.
he might, but I don't care.
That's all I heard, and I'm gonna do that. So, condolences already, Brian. Moving on, Tequila Bob picks up Robinson from the Rams. I have to imagine this is a play for next year. Tutu Atwell's coming back, so Robinson's not going to is relegated back into obscurity. Do you see anything different there? I mean, it looks like just a young guy there, someone that you're picking up, and hopefully,
Yeah.
Josh Kelly's not doing anything. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a flyer on a guy who could potentially have a bigger role next season, whether it's Tutu moving on to another team or something like, or maybe he has proven himself and he gets, signed or traded to another team. I think it's just a flyer for next year. It's $0. It's a $0 bid, so no risk.
yeah, I just didn't see him being a big contributor in the semifinal matchup that Bob has coming up, but never
Agreed.
hurts to have a little bit of extra depth on your team. As a reminder to everybody, once your team is eliminated from its final game, your rosters will lock. So everyone's still playing. We have, a game for 5th and 6th place this week. We have a game for, I believe, 8th and 9th place, 7th and 8th place,
Yep.
7th and 8th
7th, 8th,
place.
9th,
So those
and
games
10th.
are still valid. Waivers, feel free to add whoever you want. But once your team is out, then you cannot pick up or drop anybody else until the offseason when we open things back up. Okay, moving on. We helped out some people that were in playoff spots last week. Bob came to us and said that he needed some starters. We're fact checking ourselves here. He was asking who he should start: Cortland Sutton, Javonte Williams, or Josh Downs. We both picked Cortland Sutton because he was an automatic touchdown play, and he wasn't, but he was still better than the other two. So we were right. Sorry, the ceiling was not as high as we said it might be.
Yeah, I mean, better than getting 3.25 points from Javonte Williams. I definitely thought Javonte had like a higher floor, and I was wrong. He found the very bottom of that floor.
Yeah, that was a floor is lava type of situation. Nolan needed help with an RB2. Tajay Spears, Chase Brown, and Damian Pierce were his options. I mean, we were pretty straight at it. There weren't good options. None of them.
No.
Andy, you took Tajay Spears. I took Chase Brown. I am upset with the entire Tennessee Titan organization for the performance that they put on. I had high stakes in Derrick Henry popping off, and he popped on. He was so fucking bad. He had 4 catches. And do you want to take a stab at how many yards he had on those 4 catches? It was over 0. Yeah, 1 yard on 4 catches. And add that to his rushing total from his 16 carries, and he was at 10 total yards. Are you fucking kidding me? And so you're like, okay, Derrick Henry had a bad game. Tajay Spears must have done something. No, he did fuck all. So little he did.
Yeah, I mean, I think the craziest thing by far is Spears getting only 1 target in every game since their bye. He had only gotten 1 target. He had gotten 1 target exactly 0 times. So the fact that he only got 1 target is just an absolute travesty. Spears' value as a starter comes from his ability to catch the football. He wasn't able to do that. He wasn't given opportunities. That team is terrible. They need to get a quarterback.
Yeah, Derrick Henry is going to leave this year, and then Tajay Spears is going to be a great play. Bob was smart when he traded for Derrick Henry, who will play somewhere next year, just not on the Titans. Yep. And then he quickly went out and got Tajay Spears. Also, I feel like he was wanting Derrick Henry to be traded at the deadline so that he would have running backs in 2 different teams instead of this stack. He's rolled the stack out there before, and it worked last week. He didn't do it this past week, which is why he was able to pull out the win. Yeah. But it's a gross running back room. I'm going to have to start Derrick Henry again. So buckle up, strap
can't be on. Worse. I think ultimately
he almost couldn't be worse unless he ran backwards.
Yeah. Ultimately, Nolan, I know that you watched the pod, which I appreciate it, buddy. Let us know who you picked and if you won, and also who your wide receivers are, because there's no fucking way that this is your RB2 options and you don't have elite wide receivers. So let us know. And then Scott, I know that you were able to pull out a victory in your family league, but it may not have been because of us.
It was not. No, it was despite what we agreed were good plays. I had the options of Taysom Hill and Darren Waller, so I of course picked Taysom Hill. Fell directly into that trap. Taysom Hill is like in movies when they show high school girls and you're like, oh yeah, they're nice, but you can't look at real high school girls like that. But in the movies, it's fine. He is a fucking trap and you'll get arrested for what you do to Taysom Hill. I dropped his ass so fast from my team that I got a callus on my finger from hitting the screen too hard. I will never play him again. I will never have him on my bench again. I'm telling you right now, Corey, if you put him into your lineup this week, I'm picking you to win because I know he's off for 20 points this week because I dropped him. So congratulations on winning against Nolan this week if you have the stones to play Taysom Hill. We also had Fields and Flacco. That was a quarterback choice. They're in the same game against each other. We both thought the rushing upside for Justin Fields was going to be a plus, and that was wrong. Joe Flacco is the greatest passer the NFL has ever seen. He is off the couch playing Madden, now playing Madden every Sunday on the football field.
Okay, so before you start to actually jerk off Joe Flacco on the pod, we do need to say that
Joe, if you're listening, I got 2 hands, bud.
Fields was 1 Darnell Mooney drop away from winning that game and scoring more points than Joe Flacco.
He probably would have been tied in points with Flacco because Flacco ended up with 19. Fields had 11 in my scoring format. Fields also had a Hail Mary interception at the very end of the first half. That also wasn't his fault. So there's 2 interceptions there. That's -4, just right there. And then, of course, the could have been 50-yard touchdown pass to Darnell Mooney. And again, the ball landed in the man's fucking hands. And then he just kicked it to the Cleveland DB.
Yeah, he did.
And so that went from a plus 11 points of being a 50-yard pass plus the touchdown to a -2 because it was picked off. And don't get me wrong, go Browns. I was cheering like anybody else when we picked it off. Browns win. That's what I wanted. But I would not have had to go into Monday Night Football needing a performance from Seattle superstar kicker Jason Myers to clear the 40-point mark that CMC put on my head. But Fields throws the interception. I needed Jason Myers to step up, and boy did he. So thank you to all that contributed. And Taysom Hill and Derrick Henry, go fuck yourselves. Derrick Henry, please come back this week. I need you, bud. My team needs you so bad. I was projected to lose by 15 last week. Figured it out. We won. Checked my matchup this morning. Projected to lose by 20. Fucking hate this game.
All right, so bringing it back to our league where you are not projected to lose by 20.
No.
We did have one hell of a slate this week. I mean, every single game went down to the wire, of their players being on the field, essentially, right? It's like even like the McBuckets Griffin game was the first one to be decided, but that went down to the wire of like the 4:30 games. I think I don't think they had Sunday night or Monday night players, and then
Correct.
all three other matchups: me versus B Guider, Nolan versus Briggsy, and Olave Lamp versus Frogs Dogs, came down to the last quarter of Monday night. And for Bob and I, it came down to the last drive.
Yeah, and really for McBuckets and Griffin, they're the last players in their matchup were Corey's roster of Cleveland Browns players, and they looked awful too until the fourth quarter started. And then Joe Flacco had 275 passing yards in the fourth quarter. 275 passing yards in the fourth quarter. Amari Cooper and David Njoku, obviously the beneficiaries of that. So they went from looking real rough to they had a whole game's worth of production in the fourth quarter. So I don't know if we want to start there with that matchup. McBuckets plunges the toilet. He gets himself out of contention to be the in the toilet bowl.
Yep.
Can't say enough about the Browns. I love this team so much. I was so happy to see him do it.
I think Stefanski should probably win Coach of the Year. And
I think Joe Flacco should, because I know that Cleveland has been. This is now a Cleveland thing for a minute.
Okay.
The Browns have been a rush first team for decades. Joe Flacco comes in. He's in the huddle. He's looking over at the sideline. He's getting the call in the headset, and Stefanski's looking at pages and pages of plays, and they're all just run plays. Calls up, rush up the middle, whatever. And Flacco goes like, "Oh yeah, that's a good call." Turns to the huddle, and he's like, "Okay, that's some dumb shit. So we're not doing that." Amari, how fast can you run? Cool, just fucking go. I'll find you. And Njoku, go like 15 yards. I don't know, and then just look for it. It'll be like 10 feet above everybody else's head. Just jump up and get it. You'll be fine. Who the fuck is a running back? Okay, I don't care. And then Elijah Moore, just I don't know, run to the sideline and drop something. And then he does it, and then we win. And that's just how we win every game now. Browns to the Super Bowl, back to fantasy football. McBuckets with his midseason acquisitions of Purdy and Rachaad White. Can't say enough. I mean, that's when we at the end of the year, when we look back on trades of the year for our league, that's going to be a big one. That it pulled his team out of a absolute spiral, and now both of those people are going to help him be playoff ready next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that he decided to actually fucking believe in the Purd. He heard the word of the Purd and he decided to play him, and it resulted in victory. He's been running with White.
Had believed in the Purd that you are trying to, if you're listening to your own preachings, you would have had him and Rachaad White, and we'd be playing each other this week.
Yeah, we would be. And
or have a bye.
It was in the moment a trade I was hesitant to make, and I pulled the trigger because I I got scared off by Purdy's 2 bad games because I had been like
Hesitate very long.
scared. I had been scared of those games coming for a really long time, and I tilted. I 100% tilted. I made a bad trade. I think it was objectively a bad trade in the result because literally immediately Cousins tore his Achilles.
Yeah, that was
um,
rough.
it was
Definitely
the
rough.
next week he tore his Achilles. So there's nothing I can do about that. Like, I definitely think that if Kirk Cousins had not torn his Achilles, my team would have been better all year.
I
But
think if you had even spent a reasonable amount of time scouting these quarterbacks' Achilles, you would have seen it coming a mile away.
it's
Very
true.
flimsy tendons in that
It's
Kirk
true.
Cousins.
Yeah, he's been healthy for his entire career, but I would have seen it
They
coming
were
if
due. He was due.
he was due. He was due.
Absolute fucking regular
Um,
game from
but
Curtis Samuel. He had 3
yeah,
points going into the fourth quarter, and then as if Joe Flacco appeared in Washington and started throwing footballs, ends up with 18, 2 touchdowns on the day. I needed it. Corey needed it. Curtis Samuel, you'll never let me down, buddy. I don't think there are very many people that were in the playoffs, be it consolation bracket or otherwise, that went up against Sam Laporta and didn't lose to them. Laporta had a monstrous game for Griff.
monster.
Johan Dodson and Garrett Wilson did not.
I mean,
they both
but
were
it
under
does
5
help.
points.
It does help to go up against Laporta and match him with Njoku, who got 23 points. So like
Yeah.
he lost the tight end matchup by 5 points and then absolutely killed him
Yeah, I'm just saying there weren't
other
many people who
places.
went up against Laporta because most people aren't getting those numbers from their tight ends.
No, Sam Laporta's
Usually
been
you're
great.
just hoping for over 1 point, if you played Taysom Hill, maybe. I'm never letting that go.
Who
I put
was
him in my
also
lineup
in
because
Corey's lineup?
his projection was 2 points. And I said, there's no way he doesn't hit the projection. That's all I need him to do. And he was under it by 50%. Fucking
Okay.
asshole.
Okay. Corey, congratulations. You absolutely deserved it. Griffin, congratulations for correctly predicting you would lose.
That is,
Um,
I will say, he's the one and only person that's ever picked themselves to lose.
to lose,
And then
yes.
he fucking nailed it. Good for you, Griff.
Going to the other side of the toilet bowl bracket before we move over to the championship, Nolan took on Briggsy. Briggsy looked like he had this game in the bag like multiple times throughout the weekend, and then Nolan just kept chugging along and making the comeback.
It was Chris Godwin is how he did that.
Uh, yeah, I mean, 155 yards, 10 catches, was an incredible performance. I said last week on the pod that the Bengals offense could not support 2 quality wide receivers. And I said that, of course, assuming that the one that they would support is Jamar Chase. I was wrong. T. Higgins, 21 points. And then Monday
Oh, it
night.
was Jamar Chase until Jamar Chase got hurt. And then it was, we need to find somebody else.
Well, yeah, but I was still right.
Yes.
Monday Night Football, Ken Walker, again, another wonderful acquisition from me that I wish I'd had on my team in Monday Night Football. Rose out scores 20 more points. So, like, a flurry of scoring from guys that I would never have expected to give that kind of performance. Um, and he had more points on the bench. So, Nolan, he went out there, he deserved it, he earned it. Briggsy once again like got burned by Pat Mahomes, just not being good.
No,
For
for just
fantasy,
being extraordinarily fine. And like, if you had told me Nolan would have,
15
or that
points.
Nolan won that game, I would have accepted it. That's fine. Nolan has some players. If you had told me Chris Godwin led that matchup with 24 points, I would have refused to believe it. He had, if you add up the points from the previous 3 weeks, he had less points than he got last weekend. And Nolan had 5 other players that were under 10 points, including 0.15 from Bijan, and still won. So you got to find people that can pop off, and you absolutely did, Nolan.
But
He
Briggsy,
sunk himself, with 5 combined points from Brandon Cooks and Kareem Hunt.
Briggsy
That's not
also
going to get
like
done.
all year, and I understand it. It's Pat Mahomes. He's probably the best of his generation. He's probably the next closest thing to Brady, right? Like that's who he is. That's who he's shown himself to be. You play your studs. Jared Goff has been like better than him all year. I
Yeah,
don't and like once again on the bench. And I get it. Two bad weeks. Goff back at home in the dome was always gonna go off. Like at some point, I've said this multiple times this year. This is a math game. You gotta take the names out of it. And the math says Jared Goff. And it is gross to play
I
Jared
know.
Goff over Pat Mahomes.
I would have pushed harder to trade away Pat Mahomes, so I didn't put myself in that position. I mean, yeah, it is a numbers game, but man, you would need to have some underpants made of unobtainium to bench Pat Mahomes in the playoffs
Yeah.
for Jared Goff.
It's an incredibly hard call, and I don't envy Briggsy for not being, for having to make it, but like
Woof.
it's just time after time, it's like Mahomes comes out and he scores 16 points, and like, we're one of the interceptions, not his fault at all, right?
Now
Darius Tony just is bad.
he just is so bad. They
He's
should just
just
take him on. They should take him off the field, and like, because when they throw it to Kadarius Tony, the absolute best thing that could possibly happen is he drops the ball onto the football field. That's the best option. He's sure as hell not catching it, and more
he's
likely
just
than not,
not
he's
good.
going to knock it to the defending player,
The
who will
fact
pick it off.
the fact that the New York Giants drafted Kadarius Tony in the first round is the biggest indictment on the Gettleman era. So
I
I'll
need
leave
to
it
look
at
back and see what Eric traded to acquire Kadarius Tony when he got moved to Kansas City. It was a second round pick and something else, but that can't
that.
be
Yeah, I want to see what that trade tree looks like. Let's move over to the other side of the bracket, and we'll start with my matchup. This was not the better matchup because the other matchup literally went to the final play of the game on Monday night, but certainly was the matchup with more points. OB Guider ends up winning, puts up 138. I put up 130. Um, certainly my
the
best
138.
performance.
Does that mean Obi Geider had the most points of anybody in the league last week? 138 is a lot.
He had the most points of anyone who played an opponent.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. Um,
And
of
did
course,
whoever didn't play an opponent, did they play
yes.
all of their players?
I
Or did they
mean,
have one person who was out and still got 148?
okay.
Did you
So
check on that?
Scott's talking about himself in case that wasn't
Oh
clear.
no, I was just checking. I was just for bookkeeping purposes.
But yes, so Scott, you did play Tyreek Hill, who did not play. You still put up 146, which would have beaten everyone in the league. Congrats to you. Fucking do it when it matters. Like, do it when it counts.
I'm really gonna try.
Do it when it counts. Okay. Let's go back to
I
OB
don't know if
Guider.
it'll work.
I was in this matchup, obviously. He took me out. I thought this was over much earlier than it was because Jordan Addison went off 27 points from Jordan Addison against Cincinnati. He caught one of the most bullshit touchdowns I've seen in quite some time with Nick
I would
Mullins.
like to preface that Christian McCaffrey's second touchdown was pretty fucking horseshit also.
Yeah, that's fine. I was watching that game. So Jordan Addison caught a pass where Nick Mullins was falling down and just kind of like threw it over the middle. And like, you know what? He caught it. He went for a touchdown. He scored another one later. He had 6 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. 6 catches, and he scored 27 points. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Nick
He
Mullins
started the week
is the next
off.
generation Joe Flacco.
He started the week off with Devontae getting 21. Amon Ra, kind of bounced back in the dome with Jared Goff, which is not surprising. But B Guider's shitty running back room between Brees and Najee really opened the door up for me to make a comeback. And then Deontay KZ decided to try and kill Michael Pittman. And that was like probably the nail in the coffin for me once I didn't get a second half from Pittman, who was going absolutely crazy. But ultimately, the star of this game by far was James Cook. For me, he put up 37 points, one of the most ridiculous performances of the season, like pretty much across the board. He was absolutely dominant against Dallas, which we're gonna get to the Dallas game in the next matchup. Don't you worry. But props to James Cook for, they got rid of Ken Dorsey as their offensive coordinator, and I don't even know the name of the new guy. I'm sorry, I didn't look it up. That guy fucking loves James Cook, and I love him.
Yeah, it's a mix, and I mean I don't know because the new offensive coordinator whose name you don't know is not Scott Sprague, so I can't say this with certainty. But if you look at the last couple weeks when Diggs has had less production and James Cook has gone bananas, especially this week is just absurd. But it was because they found out real early that they could run on the Cowboys and they didn't need to do anything else. So they never tried to do anything else. And then the weeks before, we had Snead was all over Diggs. So then they ran it again and it worked. So they kept doing it. And then before that, it was Sauce Gardner was all over Diggs. And so they ran it and it worked. So this weekend is against the Chargers, who do not have a Snead. They do not have a Sauce. I feel like it's going to be open season for all the pass catchers. I feel like this will be splitting the middle between early season James Cook and 37 points is not going to continue happening. But the game plan, I think, is going to balance a little bit.
That is totally possible. I need to find out what the name of the replacement is. 1 second.
Oh God, I hope it's Scott Sprague.
It is Joe Brady. That's the name, Joe Brady.
Any relation to Tom?
Maybe, I don't know. So here's the thing. So Dorsey gets fired after the Denver game. Okay, since Dorsey has been fired, Cook got 4 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets. And then he did only get 3 targets, but he didn't need them because he got 25 carries for 179 yards. So, they didn't need to throw him the ball. The point that I'm trying to make is that, yes, Diggs has been getting, some bad matchups, and so they've exploited matchups elsewhere. But clearly, Joe...
Yeah, I meant that as it's both. It wasn't one or the other.
No, but, clearly Joe Brady wants to throw the ball to James Cook and get him in space, which is the thing that I and every James Cook owner have been clamoring for all year is let this dude cook in space, that's what he's good at. So the fact that they were just able to bully the Cowboys, not shocking because the Cowboys are fake, but it was great to see. It did make Monday night very interesting. So on Monday night, in case you didn't see it or you weren't in the chat or whatever, Obi Geider was able to get 11 points out of DK Metcalf and 6 points out of Dallas Goedert to come back from an 11-point deficit and beat me. He didn't have it until the last Seahawks drive when DK just went crazy, but he did end up getting it. So congratulations to B Geider.
I hate as good as James Cook was, he was not good enough to cover the 4 starters that you had that had single-digit points.
It was not enough to cover a 5-point game from Saquon Barkley, and
yeah,
all it is.
And also, it should be noted because he hasn't done it a lot this year. But let's take a moment for Scary Terry, who found himself, and I don't know if it was Jacoby Brissett periodically coming into the lineup just for fun.
Yeah,
I thought it was. I was watching. This is still when Nolan and when Nolan's matchup with Briggsy was still very close, and they got down to the goal line. And I saw Sam Howell was in there one play, and then it didn't work, and then the next play Brissett was in there, and I was like, oh God, they're pulling Howell. They're pulling Howell.
Yeah, Brissett absolutely. I don't know how it worked, but it seemed like with Brissett in, Scary Terry was able to find himself again, and get the ball. And it's almost like even if Sam Howell ended up throwing it to him, like it seemed like Brissett needed to come in and like show Sam that like, hey, he's down there and he'll just catch it if you throw it to him.
17's on our
Uh,
team.
yeah, and a guy like that, like a guy who's got hands that good, um, it's just like once you start throwing the ball, the points just start racking up because he's so fast and he catches everything. So,
Speaking of great
there
hands
was
from Ohio State receivers, did you see Jackson Smith and Jigba's touchdown?
hell yeah, I did.
Because
I was
my God,
celebrating that it wasn't DK Metcalf.
that's a good point. All right, well, yeah, moving on to the other side of the bracket. Olave Lamp sneaks past Sprague's Dogs. Eric said he texted
0.61.
me. He texted me Monday
0.61.
night, or he texted me Monday morning and said, I need 10 points from my best player to win. And I said, that's not true. You need 10.7. And he did get 10. He got 10.1 and ended up losing by 6.62 points. So if you're going to call out how many points you need from your best player, know how many points you need from your best player. This is a great rivalry, though. I went back and looked in week 10. These two played each other, and Eric won that week 10 matchup by less than a quarter of a point. So this is twice now that this matchup has come up to less than, almost less than half a point, but less than a point in both of those matchups. Yeah. Very well balanced teams. Bob had two players, both of them happened to be Tennessee Titan running backs that were under 5 points, and four players that were under 10. So it was Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, Ferguson, and Brandon Ayuk. And then the Cowboys for Eric, I know you want to talk about it.
I want to talk about it.
I know they totaled for 30 points, which has not happened most of this season, and you found the week that it would happen, and boy, did it happen.
Yeah,
it had to feel good, and then you can say whatever you want, but it had to feel good that the reason that prediction came true was because of James Cook. They were directly correlated to running out the clock. And then the Cowboys offense just couldn't, they had no answer for it because they weren't on the field long enough to do anything about it.
Yeah, so I hadn't put that together until you said it, but that is funny. So a couple weeks ago, if you got deep enough into the pod to hear me say it, I said that, they're essentially, if you are an underdog team, a team that may be limping into the playoffs like I was, the easier route to the finals might be to avoid playing Scott in round 2 because the game against Eric had this matchup, this Cowboys-Buffalo matchup in it. And I thought the weather would be an issue. Dak has never shown that he's good at playing outside in the winter in like the cold. I thought that the defense for Buffalo, who was just desperate for a win after falling to 5-5 against Denver and just needing to make a comeback to like make the playoffs, was going to be an issue. And also, I've never believed in the fucking Cowgirls. Like they beat up on bad teams and then they play good teams and they look, okay to mediocre. And so I didn't believe in them to begin with. Now, admittedly, CeeDee Lamb was totally fine. 17 points. You'll take that every single week from him, knowing that you'll get blowups. But Dak was bad. Pollard was a no-show. And the whole offense looked completely anemic and didn't really score until the Bills had basically packed it in and said, good night. And so, this isn't like surprising to me. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone who watches us because this was like bound to happen.
We said that the first episode after you guys made that trade, where Eric, who already had CD and Dak, traded and brought in Pollard from you. And the first comments we had was, that's a lot of Cowboys. That's a lot of numbers of any, as Bob will tell you, who just ran out 2 Tennessee Titan running backs. If you have a lot of stakes in one team playing a game and that game script goes the wrong way, it hurts more than
Hurts.
once. It hurts all up and down.
Yep.
And now Eric is and he has the whole off season to think about how he wants to
Yeah.
respond from that.
I mean, the same exact thing happened with Jacksonville, which we also said last week. We talked about that game and the Baltimore defense being really, really good. So ETN not being great, Ridley not being great. Now I want to admit, I don't want to just take victory laps. You and I both agree
I
that
do. I
if
love doing that shit.
you and I both agree that if Tyreek didn't play, that Waddle would end up on Sauce Island and get, not perform. He ends up going out scoring 26. He has like the highlight touchdown that everyone saw 1,000 times. And it did come down to AJ Brown, who is definitely not his best player. Like CeeDee Lamb is his best player. But
AJ
like
Brown's pretty good. I mean, that's
no,
split.
AJ Brown's great. He's just not his best player. He's probably third. Like ETN is like a top 5 running back.
He was trying to fire his boy up, but that's
but
as close to a 1A 1B as you can get.
But AJ Brown is the number one receiver on a team that's supposed to be great, and they're going up against a defense that hasn't been inspiring, especially over the middle where AJ Brown feasts, and he can't get it done because he's on the fucking Eagles, who are fake. Who are the Cowgirls
It
are
was a
fake.
great example of
Eagles are fake.
one team who had already made the playoffs, had pretty much had their spot in the playoffs picked out and secured, and then they were playing against another team who had everything left to play for, and you could tell on every drive which one each team was. The Seahawks looked good, they looked hungry, they looked scared for their season, and the Eagles felt like they were, they walked in expecting to win, and I don't think it was until like halftime that they realized, oh shit, we might not win this.
Yeah,
And
I
that would
mean
be
they
two in a
were,
row.
and not to mention the fact that they were
I
playing the only other quarterback you don't want to play. You want to play less than Joe Flacco, and that is Drew Lock.
Drew Lock, of course, yes, he was locked up.
So,
I do think the Eagles are better than you do. I'm imagining that most of that is your bias from that hat that you're wearing. Might be on one or two snaps too tight. I think the Eagles are right now going through what the 49ers went through when they lost to the Browns, go Browns. And then they lost 2 more games after that. Then they had injuries and that led to it too. But I think that they are a good team and they're just slumping, but I don't think I
no,
don't
I mean, just
I think they're a pretty fucking good team, if not
taking
fantastic.
a really quick detour into real football for a moment. Like, my thing about the Eagles is really simple. The run game isn't as good as it was last year. So Jalen Hurts has to win them games. And I don't think Jalen Hurts is especially good at throwing the ball. He's really good at running it. He's good enough at throwing it when he has wide open guys on man beater routes, like slant routes, and he's good at those, and his receivers are very good. I wish the Giants had one guy as good as AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, but like, the fact of the matter is, I don't think Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback, and their defense is kind of a sieve because they have one of the worst defensive coordinators in the last decade calling plays for them in Matt Patricia. So like, they just don't, like, they don't look like a Super Bowl team to me. They never have. They've won a lot of games that they probably should have lost, and eventually your luck runs out, and fuck the Eagles.
We'll see. The thing is that they're going to get really close to the Super Bowl, and then they're just going to push Jalen Hurts to the Super Bowl.
They're not going to get close to the Super Bowl though.
But
I
they'll
think
just
they're
push him in. If they get anywhere near it, they'll just push
I
him
think
right to the Super Bowl.
genuinely, I think the first playoff game they play, they lose.
Depends who they play against.
I'll pick whoever they're playing against to win.
That'll be after the fantasy season. But the group chat is going to stay alive through the summer.
Yeah, we'll keep the
when
pod
that
going
matchup
until
is
the end of the
determined,
season.
I will tell you if I will let you know if there's a bet to be had there. But because I think they're pretty good.
Going back into fantasy.
Yeah, so we each went 2-2 in our picks.
It's not
week.
great. No. Yeah, not great.
I felt so good about my pick. I was going to make up some ground this week. because I had McBuckets winning and you did not. I had Eric winning and he was. I felt real good about myself. And then Monday night happened and we ended up splitting the week. No big deal. So you go up to 10-4 since we started doing this. I'm at 8-6. Next year, as we've said before, we'll start it from the beginning of the season. I'd also like to see our picks go up against the contrition video picks. We could do that this week, but there seemed to be some emotional picking going on. I understand where he was coming for. Just to color the picture for everybody else, Eric was down in Florida. He took his sons, both of them, to the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. And moments later, he loses this matchup, has to do the contrition, and realizes that he is playing against his wife, who he manages that team also in the toilet bowl of another family league that we're in together. So he's going to lose either way. He will suffer the punishment either way. It's not been a good week for Eric. Happy birthday, brother.
Is it his birthday?
Saturday. He's fucking pissed. He's so mad right now. His response to me telling him about the contrition video is not happy.
That's great. I definitely had McBuckets winning. I think you had that wrong because I picked Briggsy to beat Nolan and Nolan won. So I got myself and Briggsy wrong. But
yes, I picked you to lose. B-Guider bailed me out on that one.
But yeah, so we were both 2-2. So I go up to 10-4. Scott's at 8-6. But anything can happen this week.
We'll do better.
So speaking of this week, let's talk about the playoffs.
Before we do, since you no longer have a horse in this race, you're just a spectator, right? You're just a sports fan here now. You're the Gus Johnson of our fantasy playoffs.
Okay.
Who do you want to win? And who do you think will win?
I want Bob to win.
Okay. Reason?
I think that Bob being able to take the team that Andres built last year, which was complete dog shit, and turn it into a championship team in one season would be incredible.
That would be a story.
It would just be a great story. Like, I think it would be really cool. And the fact that he was like so close to being eliminated from the playoffs and was able to like go on a run. That would be the second year in a row we had a guy just go on a run from like last
eking into the playoffs.
Yeah. So I think that would just be cool to see. I think that you are going to win.
Yeah, I assumed that would be your pick because that is the smart by the numbers pick. Yeah. I have been on record saying that I know I can win or I can lose any of these weeks. I thought you would have picked. My hope is that if I don't win, I would very much like to win. So I want me to win. Okay, if I do not, I would like Benny Denny to win because I feel like his roster is the furthest away from a roster that can repeat it next year. I think with his Chargers issues, he's got some old people on his team. Eckler is off his contract. He's one of those running backs that was leading the charge and trying to get running backs paid what they are worth in real life, but they won't be paid in real life. Yeah. So maybe he holds out next year trying to get a better deal, or he becomes a 1B somewhere. Keenan Allen, another guy that's an older statesman. He'll be back and healthy next year, but still. Travis Kelce, does he retire? And then of course every catch that Jackson Smith and Jigba has is sunsetting the career of Tyler Lockett. So I would hope that he wins if I don't, just because of that. But I agree that the Bob story is nothing short of a Cinderella story. Yeah. But to be clear, I would very much enjoy winning. So I hope that happens.
Yeah. So on the Benny Denny point, I agree. Like Benny Denny probably does have a roster that's unlikely to repeat without major changes, which he could totally. Yeah. I also know that there's a lot of talk about Bill Belichick potentially moving over to Los Angeles and taking over the Chargers, and that would be like a perfect fit for him and would make Keenan Allen better and probably allow Eckler another year there.
Yeah, it would just depend what kind of money they were giving it because he's been all about the contract
Yeah.
structure, which he should, and good for him. And
But
I'm
like
glad
if
to see
I'm
him.
Austin Eckler, like I think I give Bill a year at like, we'll see.
Well, yeah, I don't think he would re-sign in with the Chargers for any reason unless he truly believed he would win a Super Bowl,
Yes. And
and
I
that
think
would
that team
be
should be able to win a Super Bowl because it's
or a serious enough candidate that
yeah.
it would be worth it.
So
All
yeah,
right,
so
well,
I think that would be great. I also think that like when you have a guy on the, kind of a roster out there that does feel like it's in its last run, like you do kind of want to see it happen because like I haven't really seen Benny Denny be like hyper active in like the trade market or in the free agency market. So I'm like, after you have this team and it kind of falls apart because of age and like player role on teams and whatever, how well are you going to be able to rebuild it? Like, I haven't actually seen him
yeah,
do it.
his team and Briggsy's team are probably the closest to the original draft date that we
Yeah.
had. Sorry, B Guider, nobody wants you to win.
Yeah. No, like, I want Big Guider to be very clear. I want you to beat Scott
Sure.
really, really
I
bad.
I don't agree, but I completely understand that.
But like, I want you to beat Scott. I want Scott to understand that he was always on the hardest side of the bracket, and he should have known that from the beginning. but
Fucking
like,
Texas.
but
But the
like,
champion will come from the other half of the bracket.
but I really do want the champion to be either Benny Denny or Bob. Just because I think Benny Denny won't. I don't know if he'll have a shot next year. Honestly, I don't know why I keep counting the man out. Like he just always puts up winners. Like he's been one of the top
Oh,
two teams
absolutely. Yeah,
the
no,
last two
it's
years.
going to be someone. It's not going to be
But
any of the studs because it never is. It's going to be fucking Chuba Hubbard that pops off for
yeah,
75 points, breaking every NFL record because we said that he had some sort of ceiling.
yeah. So, but yeah. So I think that those are my picks. I think that's a good question though.
All right, well, let's dive straight into the playoff picture for Week 16. We'll lead it off here with the one seed, the Killing Unicorns, had our rest, and now we're back, and we're taking on probable but suspected terrorist Osama bin Gaider.
I see you roll your way into the semis. Dios mío, man. Liam and me, we're gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Let me tell you something, pendejo. You pull any of your crazy shit with us, you flash a piece out on the lanes, I'll take it away from you and stick it up your ass and pull the fucking trigger till it goes click.
Jesus.
You said it, man. Nobody fucks with the Jesus.
Eight-year-olds, dude.
Here's what I'll say. Obi Guider goes into this matchup. He's a massive underdog. All right. He doesn't have the advantage, I don't think, at any position at all. He is going up against Justin Jefferson with Justin Jefferson's understudy. He has
Who outscored him last week. Maybe Nick Mullins is friends with Jordan Addison. Maybe that's a connection.
Josh Jacobs is coming off an injury. Devontae has to play Kansas City with Aiden O'Connell. And yes,
he's gonna get
they put up 63 points. There's no question. They can put up a lot of points, but they also put up 0 points the week before that. So, like, who the fuck knows?
So they're averaging about 30 points a game in the last 2 weeks.
That's right. That's right. Metcalf, I think, is probably about tied with Puka. Amon-Ra is going up against one of the few guys who's going to be better than him. Same thing with Jonathan Taylor. You got going up against McCaffrey. And then Breece is just like the other good New York running back. He's going up against 11-man boxes because they don't have a quarterback. So it's like You know,
You see
and then
Zach
Trevor
Wilson's
goes up
not
against
playing.
Josh Allen. So
Trevor Simeon will be quarterbacking the New York Football Jets.
yeah, so it's like, I think that Obi Geider has a chance to put up. Honestly, he could potentially put up more points than up for the second week in a row than both teams on the other side of the bracket, and I just don't see him winning.
Yeah. So if you had asked me at the beginning of last week who I would rather be playing right now, at the start of the week, I would have said, give me Brian. Let me play that team. It's a good team, but it was, he would even admit it's bruised and battered and not fully healthy at all. Again, Aiden O'Connell being the quarterback for the Raiders, who he has quite a few players from, that hurts. If you had asked me halfway through Sunday, I'd say, give me that Andy. His team is all fucked up. He's got injuries left, right, and center. I would rather be playing you right now than Brian. If your teams were both healthy, it'd be an even match. But
Yeah.
the way your team currently is, I was really hoping that you pulled out on Monday night.
Yeah. My top two wide receivers are both dead, so yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so there are some questionables as of now on, after the Wednesday practices, which are the least reliable practices for injury reports, which isn't why my picks are 8-6, but could be because I don't have all the information when I'm making my picks. So I have Tyreek Hill, who has not practiced yet this week. I'm assuming he plays. And then on the other side, Brian has Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Trevor Lawrence, Najee Harris, all questionable. If those all break his way and Tyreek sits and the players that he wants to start are in, it gets a little bit more interesting. There is an X factor that nobody's talked about yet. And that is that this afternoon, Brian released Rico Dowdle back into free agency. So you guys feel free to dive on him. And has activated 25-year-old rookie quarterback for the Detroit Lions, Hendon Hooker.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Hooker is... I don't know who he is. I've never heard of the man. I've never seen the man.
He played at Tennessee.
He's currently on the depth chart behind Jared Goff and Teddy Two Gloves himself, Teddy Bridgewater, and Nate Studfield. What the fuck are you doing, Brian? Release him. Release the hooker. Like, I don't understand. He is hooked so hard. I saw that. He released Dowdle before the waiver wire cleared, and I was like, oh, he's probably going to pick up, I don't know, a quarterback or another running back, just pick up some depth piece. And then waivers came and went, and there was nobody added from B Guider, no bids put in from B Guider, and I was like, what the fuck? So I looked at his roster, and sure enough, there he is. He's been sitting in IR all year. Maybe this is his week. I don't know. I'm scared of him. You should probably start him. Maybe if Trevor Lawrence sits, we'll get that hooker experience. And I'll tell you what, if you start him and you beat me, name your price, dude. I'll paint your fucking house. I don't care. It'd be the most. I don't know who this human being is, but good for you for believing. You've had him on your roster since this dynasty started, so you are a believer.
I think he's a rookie
really
this year,
Constance.
for the record.
Huh?
I think he's a rookie this year, so he's had him since the draft this year.
Well, I just assumed he was a rookie 15 years ago when he came out of college. The man's 25. He's never played a snap. Like he's a rookie next year when he doesn't play this year either.
My favorite thing is that when you click on his name in Sleeper, the latest news is that Hendon Hooker will be available at Minnesota.
Good. Fire him up. Let's go. So I mean,
he's gonna be there on the sideline waiting for his.
This is chess, gentlemen, not checkers. You take any advantage you can get. Maybe Hendon Hooker is the hero that Brian's needed this whole time. Time will tell. Moving on to the other matchup in the playoffs, we have the 2 seed Benny Denny coming out of off his bye week, and he gets to play number 6 seed Tequila Bob himself. we've talked about Bob's heroics last week, and even just to get into the playoffs. So I'm playing Keenan Allen in my family league. So I'm going to ask you, is it better or worse for Benny Denny if Keenan Allen starts, knowing that his quarterback is hockey stick, not even human being like Derek Carr, just a hockey stick, Easton stick? He would likely start Gabe Davis or DeAndre Hopkins over Keenan Allen.
I think it's definitely better to play DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a tough one. I think it's probably better to have a guy like Keenan Allen, who is the only dependable receiver on his team, than to not have him. But I think it's really close. I think it's pretty much break even.
Yeah, and if he plays, he won't be a distraction. Like, we've seen players who are limited during the week go out there and be a decoy or something, but he's not going to do that because there's no one else on the Chargers that is remotely a threat. And there's going to be so much garbage time that is all you can hope for, is that they're going to be passing like they're losing by 30 and from when the second quarter starts. So maybe that's enough volume to get Keenan Allen going. If he plays, it'll be a tough decision for Benny Denny to make. Olave Lamp has some injuries. Also, Chris Olave should play this week, so he should be coming back. Brian Robinson is still out. Bob's got 2 tight ends in. He's rolling the Hawkinson and Fergalicious.
Yep.
Maybe he plays newcomer Demarcus Robinson, fresh off that 3 TD streak, or he's got 3 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, but with Tutu back. Maybe Jacoby Myers or super nasty boy Hollywood Brown. I don't know if you see any gems in that pile of rubble. But if Bob rolls out the Titans RB stack again,
No,
you're
can't see that.
lose. No, you just can't. And I don't think he wouldn't. They're not starting in his lineup right now. But you can't go back to that.
I think Hollywood Brown playing against the Bears is interesting, although they play in Chicago. I think that Wan'Dale Robinson.
He just goosed though.
I know, but they were playing the Niners. Bears defense. Before that, they played Pittsburgh. So 2 really good defenses. Chicago's not there's not an excellent
pretty good defense.
It's not a bad defense anymore.
I
I would
they
say
just got Joe Flacco, but for the first 3 quarters, they were holding them pretty tight. So
I don't hate the Ferguson Hawkinson stack.
I don't either.
To be honest, I think that getting Olave in over Robinson, and if over Demarcus Robinson, and assuming that Brian Robinson does not play, I would probably do Olave Myers. Personally, Myers has been pretty solid all year as a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. But I understand it. Robinson has had double digits in 3 consecutive weeks, and 2 of those weeks were against Cleveland and Baltimore. So if Tutu Atwell hasn't really been scary this year, so I understand potentially rolling with Robinson here. But yeah, I would probably go now. Keep in mind, Bob, I'm eliminated. I scored 35 more points than you last week, but I'm still eliminated. So maybe don't listen to me. I lost, but yeah, that's what I would go with: Olave and Myers.
Yeah, you can listen to me. I'm still very much in this for now, anyway. But yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I have the nuts to play Hollywood Brown, even though I might have to in my family league, because I'm looking for any wide receiver with a fucking pulse right now. I do think Tutu comes back and takes the Demarcus Robinson role back, because that was his role on the field before he got hurt, and I don't think he hasn't done anything to deserve it being taken away other than being hurt.
Yeah,
and Jacoby Myers is one of those. Maybe 10 points. Go get your 10 points. Might be 0. Careful.
Might be. Yeah, I would also just say on the other side, and I do think it's worth calling out, Tyler Lockett has been on the downslope for many weeks. He had 14 against San Francisco. But, other than that, since week 11, he's only been in double digits that one time. So, it seems like, Smith and Jigba has really taken his job for the most part. DK is catching the deep passes now, and Smith and Jigba is catching everything underneath, and then added the deep pass touchdown, this past week just to win that game. Hopkins was bad last week because the entire Tennessee offense was bad, but he's been pretty solid since their bye. He's only scored single digits 3 times since week 8. He is clearly the number 1 target on that team. He's the only guy they've got.
He might also be the number 2 target because they just don't have fucking anybody.
So, personally, again, I lost. I would have beaten you, Benny Denny, last week if we had played, but I lost. So, maybe don't listen to me, but I would try and find a way to get Hopkins in, whether that's, moving on from Connor, who maybe they aren't going to play him. I'm not sure, or getting Lockett out of there. But those are just some thoughts on both sides, from someone who definitely lost and would have won against both of them last week.
Right on. Well, moving on to the Toilet Bowl finals. We have number 7 Griffin and number 8 Briggsy. Look, it was a rough ride for both of these teams the entire season. These are teams we expected to see here, or at least vying for these positions.
Yep.
It looks like there aren't any, at least as of now, no injuries on either side. Besides, Briggsy has a questionable Jalen Reed. But besides that, both sides seem pretty healthy. Looking at both of these teams' bench, it's gross.
Well, one of them has a bench and the other one doesn't.
Sort of. If you're looking at both teams' benches, Justice Hill is the only player on either bench that I would let anywhere near my starting lineup. I would have a restraining order on some of those players. I would rather have Hendon Hooker on my bench than some of these guys. Quentin Johnson has been fine. He's had 8 points, 10 points, 9 points in the last couple weeks. But is that who you want to decide your entire season? And this is, arguably more repercussions for this than any of the other games this week. This is it. This is, will you be the last place Toilet Bowl captain for a full calendar year? You will hold this title until this time next year. And is Quentin Johnson, who you're putting in your lineup that you're feeling really good about, Latavius Murray? Are you fucking kidding me? Is this where we're at? What the fuck are we doing here?
We're talking about a guy.
How is this almost a 6th seed?
Yeah, but we're talking about a guy who has Jalen Hyatt, Kadarius Toney, Rondell Moore.
That's what I'm saying.
Tutu Atwell, Alan Lazard, Juju, Miles Sanders. Do
you know how many people I tried to trade to him?
Latavius Murray is the best option. So
no, because the best option was in week 9. You trade for people because you had a playoff chance and you just ignored it. You sat on your laurels. You said Latavius Murray's my guy.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb. It's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
Listen, Scott, we know that Griffin doesn't watch football. We also know that Griffin doesn't watch the pod. So you're not going to convince him here. So let's move over to Briggsy, who might actually watch the pod. I don't know.
No, actually, both of these two people do not. So there's a direct correlation in this league of people who watch the pod and are not in the Toilet Bowl. Because I actually know for a fact that everyone else in the league does listen, with the exception of Briggsy and Griffin. So if that's not the byline for our podcast next year, is listen to this or else you'll find yourself in the Toilet Bowl finals. God damn, dude. I still can't believe it. I really offered this dude so many fucking running backs all year. Just have all of them. And all I want is your Gibbs back.
I think the difference with Briggsy is he's got Mahomes, who, again, I honestly, Goff is playing a terrible Minnesota secondary in a dome. I would play Goff. Zeke is playing Denver. Denver is not good against the run. I'd probably take Cooks out, put Zeke in, and just roll with it. And like those are the only two changes I would make. I like Singletary. He's fine. Mixon playing Pittsburgh isn't what you want, but Cooper Kupp seems to have refound something with Matt Stafford. Rashee Rice is the number one receiver in that offense, and hopefully Kadarius Toney does not touch the field, so he won't turn the ball over and prevent Rashee Rice from catching the touchdowns that he deserved. Evan Ingram is probably the number one receiver in Jacksonville right now. I'm just saying, like from a volume standpoint. And then, Palmer is going to play. So, that's something. And then
he might get a bump if Keenan Allen sits.
He might, but he's not very good, and he has Easton Stick throwing it to him. So, like, nothing
No,
special.
but it's a lot of garbage time. So, I'm not endorsing a Josh Palmer play. I'm just saying you can see how that could turn into 15 points if they're just heaving passes downfield because they're losing by 30, and what the fuck difference does it make?
And I totally hear that, and that's why I'm like, I wouldn't take him out over Brandon Cooks. But ultimately, the call that I would make, that you can play this back to me next week and show me how stupid I was for saying this, is I would take Patrick Mahomes, who has put you in the position of being in this game, and I would sit his ass on the bench right next to Kadarius Toney and say, goodbye, Jared Goff is my quarterback this week, and like, don't fucking lose the league. That's the call I would make, and I think it wins you the league. But you know what?
Well, it doesn't lose you the league, but yes, understood.
Sorry, yes. It wins you this game, which prevents you from having to embarrass yourself very significantly after losing the entire league. So that would be the call I would make. It's probably the boldest call that I can give you. But
I don't
you're
know
in a situation like this.
I'm trying to decide if I disagree with it or not enough to bother wagering it. But if I'll reach out before Monday, or when does before Sunday at 1 when Jared Goff plays. I'll let you know if I'm willing to take that bet. Either way, though, I do think Pat Mahomes can cover whatever Russell Wilson throws out. So,
yeah, I mean, Russ is playing New England, and like they're still in the playoff hunt, but they blew an opportunity to catch up with KC or keep pace with KC last week. They need to win. So
Belichick forever has done the thing where they're like, you can score on us however you want to, except for whatever the thing is that you guys do best. We're going to shut that down, and you can do anything else to us.
Jerry Jeudy.
I'm scared. I'm scared that it's going to be Cortland Sutton that gets shut down.
Yeah,
and then it turns into a running game where even Julio McLaughlin comes back in, and
I'm just saying, you guys in Ohio, I think you guys have legalized sports betting. Is that right?
We sure do.
Yeah, so maybe Javonte anytime touchdown, and maybe fucking, what's the other one I just said? Anytime touchdown.
Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy, anytime touchdown. Those would be bets I would consider this week, because Cortland Sutton is gonna.
If only there was any player except Cortland Sutton anytime touches the field.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna. I think that Denver is. I have to give a lot of credit to Sean Payton, who took a team that looked like they were lost at the beginning of this season, losing
are you talking about Sean Payton or Bob May?
I'm talking about Sean Payton. But like, he's gotten that team to believe in what he's preaching, and like, they don't suck anymore. It's like you would just fire anybody up against Denver earlier this year, and now it's like, okay, this team doesn't suck. Like, they have a decent defense, and their offense, can move the ball. I think they're gonna fucking kill New England. I know that Belichick is a genius, but like, you can't get around the injuries that team has had, and the fact that they have 3 wins and nothing to play for. So
and I never thought the Broncos would lose. I just don't think that they win by.
I'm just saying, I think
doing Portland's doing their normal playbook, because the Broncos will find other ways to to
Yeah.
score touchdowns.
But I think Russ could put up points, and like that could be the difference. Like in this matchup between Griffin and Briggsy, the difference could be that Russ puts up points and Mahomes just puts up another like 15-pointer, and like Jared Goff puts 25 up on the bench, and like that's the difference in the week. So
Yeah, well, we got two more matchups.
yeah, let's get through this.
I feel like Eric kind of said it best, where it doesn't matter because you guys are
No, it
all.
doesn't matter.
We'll go through super quickly because they are two great rivalries. You and Eric have been going back and forth ever since the Pollard trade. I'm glad that you guys got to match up, even if this game is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You are beyond injured. James
Yes.
Cook was questionable. I don't know if he practiced today or not, but that's an issue. Jamar Chase, Michael Pittman is. Has anyone confirmed if he's alive after that?
I saw him walk off the field, but ever since then, no.
Okay, sure. And then Sprog's Dogs has no injuries.
Yeah.
If you have anything to say about it, now's the time. Otherwise, we'll move on.
There was a week to play Sprog's Dogs, and it was last week.
Fair enough. And then in the 7th place matchup, Moto Panicago versus McBuckets, another pair of people who have trash talked each other all year. And by each other, I mean McBuckets has been shitting on Moto Panicago literally every week, and every opportunity he took. Oh, beat him. You and Corey said that he wished that he had lost last week so he could play Nolan in the finals of the Toilet Bowl to get a better draft pick because he knew that he was going to beat Nolan. Prove it. I will say Chris Godwin can't possibly repeat what he did last week. It is impossible. He might get production from somewhere else. Could easily happen, but it will not be Chris Godwin. The Browns pass catchers are going to slay. Curtis Samuel against the Jets is troubling, but go Browns. I feel like they should be enough. And as I said at the top of the pod, Corey, put Taysom Hill in your lineup. I dropped him. He's going to go off for 20. Maybe 30.
Brock Purdy forever.
Sure. Yeah.
Should we just start with this game as our first pick of the week?
Sure. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, I am gonna take. It's a tough one.
It really is. There's a lot of nasty boys in this lineup on both sides.
Yeah. I am gonna take
Plug your nose and give me a pick.
Brock Purdy forever. Let's go McBuckets.
Yeah, that sounds about right. If Corey loses this matchup, he'll take it harder than anyone else losing their matchup this week. But I believed in McBuckets from the beginning. Nolan, this is not a dig on you at all. I really like McBuckets team.
Yeah.
I don't even need to go into Joe Flacco again, although Joe, I would go into you if you would have me. I'm taking McBuckets.
Yeah. All right. Briggsy versus Griff.
All right. In the toilet bowl. Again, nasty boys all over. I feel like Briggsy's team has a easier path to like upside plays. And Griffin's team, Garrett Wilson is the player that has the most upside besides your Detroit Lions, and Garrett Wilson has Trevor Siemian, now the tertiary option in New York. No, I'm sorry. This is a position you put yourself in by not preparing yourself during the regular season. I think Briggsy does just fine, and we'll take this one. And I hope he puts up another 160-point match against Griffin.
Yeah, this one's tough. I'm looking at the matchups. There's really, Briggsy's got tough running back matchups. Singletary takes on Cleveland. Mixon takes on Pittsburgh. Cooper Kupp's going up against New Orleans at a short week. New Orleans just, not that the Giants offense is special in any way, shape, or form, but did just completely shut down the Giants offense. I'm going to go upset special. I'm taking Griffin.
Oh, wow. Are you serious?
Yeah, I think.
Well, let's be clear. It's not an upset. Griffin is the 7th seed and Briggsy's the 8th.
but projections wise.
Sure. No, I'll make the pick. Yeah, sure.
I think Laporta, Kittle, Aaron Jones, Russ, and Gibbs are probably enough to get past Briggsy, who has some really tough matchups, and I don't think he will play Goff. So
Game theory would say, in addition to everything else, and your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes right now, game theory would say put in Jared Goff, just because the two best pass catchers that Griffin's going to have this week are Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. So put in the quarterback for both of those guys, and you'll get the touchdowns as well.
I see that. I saw that as well, and I was like, yeah, I think that you're going to get Goff going off on your bench and also killing you by throwing it to your opponent. So I don't know. I don't feel good about the pick, but I just think that Griffin has some weird magic that will prevent him from coming in last.
Yeah, that's really gonna suck for Briggsy. I reached out to him today, and I was just like, bro, just make sure you're checking things real tight, because you are in toilet bowl considerations, regrettably. And he did not believe that I was regretting that statement at all. You're absolutely right. I told him, I was like, I didn't know how to tell you that you were in the toilet bowl without sounding like an asshole. So I went for patronizing, and good luck, man. I'm pulling for you.
Yeah, for the record, I want Briggsy to win. Griffin's team is terrible and deserves to lose.
I understand. No, I can see the path that Griffin does do it. But I am taking Briggsy. Let's go to the number 2 Benny Denny versus number 6 Tequila Bob.
Yeah.
The Chargers are going to dictate this matchup. It's going to be does Keenan Allen play? Mm-hmm. Does Austin Eckler do anything? He's been really rough and looked like, not just like he hasn't scored a lot of points, but like he's looked bad at football. I'm sure he's hurt. I'm sure there's something going on, because he is a great player, but he is not a great player right now.
Yeah.
Every time I try to predict what Benny Denny will do, someone stupid goes off. It's never even the stars that should go off. It's someone dumb. Some guy off his bench that he's plugging in as a bye week spot start will go off for 40. That's every single time I've said something against Benny Denny. That said, Bob, I have you advancing in this round of the playoffs.
Wow. Okay. Unexpected for sure. Yeah, I think that I'm gonna go with Benny Denny.
I'm
Bob,
just trying to
I love you.
Picks. That's all I'm doing here.
I love you, Bob. I want you to win again. I said it before. I think the story is great. You've got the Niners receiver stack going up against Baltimore on Monday Night Football. That scares the shit out of me. I have no idea what to expect from Henry. You got Lamar going up against San Francisco, probably the only defense that can potentially contain him. And on the other side, Jalen Hurts, fake good quarterback, playing the Giants, who he always kills, and like he desperately needs to fucking destroy us. And so I have no doubt that he will figure out how to do that. So you got that. I think the Eckler and Allen stuff is a little overblown, to be honest. Like, those guys are going to be, if they play, I think they're going to be like fine. They're just not going to be like top 10 at their position.
I mean, in just going back the last 5 weeks, just so I'm making my point. Week 15, Austin Eckler had 6 points. Week 14, he had 19. Great week. 2 touchdowns. Week 13, he had 5 points. 12, he had 8 points. And week 11, he had 6.5 points. So it's been weeks of mediocrity. And then week 14, he had one, like, oh, there's Austin Eckler again.
Yeah, no, I hear it. I think that he can be an RB2, and I think Allen, if he plays, is going to be okay. I think just overall, I look at Benny Denny and I'm like, you have better matchups and you've got better players across the board. Like overall, I mean, better players. So I think it's close. I think it's much closer than the projections have it. But I'm done getting burned by picking against Benny Denny. I'm picking him to win. Fair
enough. Maybe that's what breaks the curse, and maybe Benny Denny will just do what logic should have him do because you picked him to win. Maybe he's the Taysom Hill of our league. I don't know.
Did we skip the matchup between me and your brother?
We did. Yes.
Okay, before we get to the next the final playoff matchup, let's just go back and pick this meaningless game. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Look, Eric was very pissed following his first round exit in the contrition video. He's fired up. The Cowboys will be fired up. Man, I mean, if your team was healthy, we could have a conversation about pros and cons up and down the lineup. I just don't think your team is healthy enough to give him the run that he needs. And maybe Miami's defense shuts down the Cowboys again. If they run with Mostert and Achane, the same thing could happen as happened last week. So it could happen. Your team is so broken right now.
Yeah.
I'm taking Sprague's dogs. And honestly, I'd be surprised if you didn't take Sprague's dogs also. I think it's him, and I think it's going to be him by quite a bit.
I'm taking Sprague's dogs. I think it's over Thursday night. I don't even know if he's
is that when the Cowboys play?
He doesn't have guys playing. It's gonna be over Thursday night. Like it's.
Oh, you guys. Okay, so on Thursday you have Alvin
Stafford
Kamara.
and Kamara. I have Stafford and Kamara.
Okay. Yeah, Stafford against New Orleans. I'm actually. I guess this will transition into my matchup with B Guider.
Yeah.
I have two of the LA Rams, Puka and Kieran. I don't expect I'll be playing both of them because of the matchup against New Orleans.
Interesting. Okay.
And when I say I don't expect to play both of them, I mean I'm leaning towards benching Puka. I think that's what's gonna happen. And that's just because the defense is good. Now the whole Rams is healthy again, and I just want to watch it and see what happens. But against a really good New Orleans defense, there's supposed to be rain in Los Angeles, and people in LA don't know how to handle rain, and it's a Thursday. And really, I mean, most of it is I don't want my matchup to be over on Thursday also. If the game just turns into a low-scoring, good defensive game from New Orleans, I don't want both of those players to be affected by that. And I feel like I have bench options that can cover what Puka should do. If he catches 3 touchdowns, I'm wrong, but he should do anyway, I feel like I can find elsewhere.
I think it's a safe play that if I was doing it, you would flame me for, because it is such a safe play.
Benching Puka?
Yeah, but you have so many other guys who can just explode that, maybe it is the right call. I would say like that's putting a lot of faith in that Tyreek Hill plays.
Yeah, yes and no, because it's going to be, so I'm planning on putting Swift in for Puka in a flex spot, because Jefferson can move up to from the flex into a wide receiver role. Yep. And then if something should happen to Tyreek, it's going to be Ty Chandler or Sutton even.
Yeah,
and I'll just have to swallow everything I just said about how Sutton's going to get shut down. I feel like there's enough upside players that really, with the ones that I'm hesitant on being Puka, I just want somebody that's going to get a nice safe floor, and that's Swift for me this week. He's got a great matchup against the Giants.
Yep.
If they're ahead and winning, I don't see any reason why they would keep passing.
I think it'll be Gainwell. I think it'll be Gainwell and Bart Scott, who they fucking love, or Boston Scott. They fucking love to get Boston Scott touchdown. Like Boston Scott's gonna get brotherly shoved into the end zone instead of Jalen, just to like fuck with the Giants.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. It might even be Ty Chandler if Alexander Madison sits. It's gonna be Ty Chandler again. I don't care that he's going against the best run defense in the league. It's volume. It's just it'll be volume enough to get to 10 points, and that's the floor that I need from that one roster spot.
Yeah, I like
find
Chandler.
My poppers elsewhere.
I like Chandler there. So I assume you're going with yourself.
I am going with myself. Again, Brian, I appreciate that you beat Andy. I wanted to be the one that shut you down, Andy. I feel like that was better content for the pod, which is first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then, but it's safer for everybody if you're out in round one and we just don't have to worry about it anymore. Because now my biggest fear is now over. Now my second biggest fear of being knocked out myself, still very much on the table.
Glad to know I'm number one in your heart and in your mind.
No, it's the reigning champion winning before my team gets to the promised land.
Currently, it's still me. So
You're out. Your season's over.
I'm still reigning champ, bitch. There's no one else. No one else.
There's
won.
nobody in that throne as far as I'm concerned. You're dead on the floor.
All right, so
I don't know if you heard the cold open, but the king is dead.
I didn't hear the cold open. That's a little behind the curtain. I don't know what it is.
No, it's still like halfway done, and it's coming up on 1 a.m. So wrap this up, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I needed to pee for 20 minutes. B Guider, I'll give you a nice cut point if you want to cut around that.
No, that's fine. Let it roll.
So B Guider, I want to be very clear. I think your team is actually super solid. I hope Jonathan Taylor comes back and plays a full week. I love Amon-Ra. DK always finds a way to score. Devontae is fucking great. Dallas Goedert, Giants killer. Fuck the Eagles. Josh Jacobs is good, but not special. Jordan Addison looks like he is an absolute steal, both for you and for the Vikings. Ultimately, this just comes down to you're playing a team that is projected to score 130 and is probably going to score 145.
I'll say this too: is his team is good, and I've said this before when we were talking about your matchup with him.
Yeah,
it's the only reason I'm anywhere near as confident as I am is because his team is battered with injuries. If Taylor comes back, he might be limited. And now they found some Trey Sermon juice, so I don't know if they just re-signed him, so they're not going to want to protect him a little bit. Breece Hall is playing with Trevor Siemian as his quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is banged up, so he might need to go to Jake Browning, who doesn't have Jamar Chase anymore to throw it to, or Hendon Hooker, who's going to be sitting on the bench the whole time.
Yes,
it wasn't an indictment on if he was playing a fully healthy team. I feel like it would be much closer, and I would be a little bit more scared. And I certainly know that he can pop off and do it. But it's just about that his team isn't at full strength right now.
Yeah, I would just say, B Guider, with all the love in my heart to you, if you were at full strength, you'd still lose by 15. So you're just going up against a juggernaut who's traded away his entire future to win 2 championships in a row and reset everything. And
I just want one. I'm focused on this year. Okay,
that's totally fine.
I don't care what happens after this year.
Shut the fuck up. All right,
Never.
Let's finish the pod.
You're dead. You aren't talking anymore. You just got beat last round.
So B Guider, I love you. I wish you the best of luck next year. And Scott, I'm looking forward to potting with you next week to talk about your potential championship game.
Not there yet. Gotta make it there, and then have to make it.
This is all about picks. This is about takes. This is about entertainment. We're an hour and a half into the pod.
Oh, fuck me. That's
Merry
Christmas, everybody, because that is when this podcast is going to come out. Is this your 40 chess way to beat me? Is just to keep me up all night so I make stupid fucking decisions? I don't drop Antonio.
You're the one that chooses to edit after we record.
Wilson off of IR, which means Puka has to stay in my starting lineup. I see what you're doing, and I won't fucking stand for it.
There you go. All right. Well, you started this podcast, so why don't you end it?
Goodbye.
That got goofy at the end, didn't it?
I squeeze the gap till my clip is done. I squeeze the gap till my clip